Okay, so we can start. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Right to be Read podcast, the podcast that inspires and encourages writers. I'm Annie Alexander, and I have Dan Woodover from Draft2Digital. I'm one of their customers or clients or whatever they call the people who use their services. So, but I won't be the one who will tell about the service and what it is. I guess it's better that Dan introduces it to you so you can find out what it does for you.
Hello, Dan Wood from Draft2Digital. I'm the director of author relations and operations as well. Draft2Digital is just a platform that helps indie authors publish their books as widely as possible. So we provide a number of tools to make that easy. What we found is for authors, time is their number one resource. And so they're just always busy. And so we try to make everything that's kind of monotonous and tedious about managing all of your titles in your library easy. We provide if you need to convert your a Word document into all the different digital files you need for the different storefronts, we'll do the conversion for you. We help you manage, and you go to our website and you can upload to 8 or 9 platforms at this point and change your price at one place, and it goes everywhere. Enter your tax information at just one place instead of having to do the same tax paperwork over and over. We also allow authors to do things like pre-orders and a couple other cool options just to help you get more visibility.
Okay, so basically, for those who have only used Amazon, I guess these kind of services are the fastest and easiest way to actually make sure that your book is pretty much everywhere out there, and you don't spend too much time and effort on having it out there. So basically, if you already have published it somewhere, or you can even start from scratch, right? If you just have the book and haven't published it at all, can you start directly with Draft2Digital?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so it will.
Because we provide customer support over the phone, we have a lot of people who start with us because they're new to the whole process, and so we kind of walk them through it. We don't currently distribute to Amazon, but we do provide files for people to directly upload to Kindle Direct Publishing.
Okay, I see. So basically, the main idea is, I just want to play devil's advocate in here, saying that most of the writers I know have a majority of their sales coming from Amazon. So they sort of, especially if they don't know how to save time on doing all that, they are not really inclined into going to the new markets. So because they think that it's not worth it. So what are your statistics saying? Are there any, for example, I've heard that Kobo is really kind of strong and big in Canada, for example, and there are some specific markets where, you can reach out better if you are, in places other than Amazon. So what your experience tells you? Well, why should one even bother getting into these other markets?
Well, currently, the majority of ebook sales are in the U.S. It's really the only place with a huge ebook adoption rate right now, and Amazon does have the majority share of the U.S. I'd probably say anywhere between 70-75% of all sales in the U.S. are through Amazon of ebooks. When you look at the worldwide picture, though, it's much less. It's more like 60-40. So you're right. Kobo is very, very strong in Canada. Kobo is both their storefront and their device name. And so where U.S. People will talk about the Kindle as being synonymous with an ebook reader, people in Canada say Kobo. Apple is huge as they've added iBooks to their, it's a default on all of the Apple devices. So you have over a billion, I don't remember the exact number, devices now that are e-readers. And what we're seeing is a lot of movement towards people reading on their phones, on their tablets, instead of buying a dedicated e-reader. There's many reasons for that. Convenience. In developing countries and in the rest of the world, a lot of times either people lack internet access, everywhere, like is common in the U.S., or they just don't have the disposable income to buy a dedicated e-reader. And so a lot of people are reading on their phones as they switch over from print to digital. And so for us, we do about 70% of our sales in the US right now, but the other 30% is rest of the world. Apple and Kobo are very strong in Australia, and we find that the Australian market has a lot of crossover as far as what they like with the US market. And of course, it's English language too. Right after that, it's Canada and the UK are kind of neck and neck for our sales. And there we find Kobo's very strong, Apple's strong. In the UK, Barnes and Noble does pretty well. And so, I encourage people, always be on Amazon, but diversify and start building your readership in other places, because we don't know what the book market's going to look like in the future. As we move forward, Amazon has, I believe, 14 different storefronts for different countries and territories. Apple has 51, Google Play has 52. Kobo reaches into 190 different countries and territories, which is amazing. For us, this last year, we sold in 220 different countries and territories. And so that really surprised me because I wasn't expecting it. And, I hear people talking about how they wish they had been in right at the beginning of the Kindle rush, in 2008, 2010, that time frame. When you see a lot of authors that came out of that successfully because people were seeing their books over and over. And like now is a good time to get in at the ground floor for the world markets, and they've got tons of room to grow. We distribute to the Tolino Alliance, which is a German group of different booksellers. And so it's like all their different physical bookstores got together and said, let's not compete in the digital marketplace, let's work together. And so all these different storefronts, you can go to their website. Tolino's not like a website, like you won't find a Tolino store, but it's the device, like their Kindle, it's called the Tolino. And this alliance, how it works is whenever you go to any one of the different storefronts, you can buy the digital book and it'll run on Tolino. It doesn't matter which store you bought it from. And so they are neck and neck with Amazon in the German market for digital sales. And they just continue to grow in Central Europe.
Okay, I see. So basically, if you look at it, I guess the ideal option might be having your book on Amazon, getting the KDP Select benefits for the first 3 months, and then maybe transition to the other markets, or you would advise, starting from with everything all together at the same time.
I see a lot of people do that. I think it does vary by genre. Like certain genres, like if you're in romance or mysteries, they have such strong reader groups at Apple, for instance, and Barnes and Noble. I would probably start everywhere. But I do see we have a lot of authors that do start and select, and then after the 90-day period, move on to everywhere else.
Okay, so let's just, take it step by step and imagine that I'm a newbie writer. I have written a book, and I have the draft manuscript. So, not even the draft. I have edited it because obviously you have to, and that's what I have at this point. So what happens from there on? I have decided to use Draft2Digital. I have decided that I want it everywhere, distributed everywhere. So where do I start? Do I have to format it for a certain device beforehand, or I just use whatever I have? What happens? What are the very starting point?
There's a couple of different scenarios. The first scenario is a lot of authors bring us their book in as a Word document. You would just upload the Word document, and then we do that conversion for you. At that point, once we've done the conversion, you get to see a sample and download a sample of it and make sure we did the conversion correctly. So look and make sure your chapter headings are right. If you had tables or images in it. If it's not correct, then you can click on a button to contact our support staff, and they'll look and see what went wrong. If it's something we can fix on our end, if it's something, for people who are doing like technical manuals or something that's heavily illustrated, sometimes automatic conversion software doesn't really work. But then we let them know, they need to work with a professional EPUB formatter.
Okay, so you do it for free? Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, we handle, especially like genre fiction, we handle very, very well. And so the majority of the time, our conversion does it on the first pass and we don't get questions. When we do get questions, we fix it on our end. Because we do believe very strongly, we don't have a guide or anything that we make people follow. We've written very robust software to automatically detect where chapters are and to format things correctly for everywhere. We have a lot of authors who bring us their own EPUB files. And so like if you use Scrivener or a tool like that, and you want to make your own EPUB file and have a little bit more control over how the end product looks, you can export that EPUB file and then you can upload that to us as well.
Okay, I see. Okay, so basically you take care of the formatting, so the writer doesn't have to deal with that, which is really cool because that's one of the most daunting, tasks which take time, and at the end, not always you're happy with what you've done. So what happens next? I need to have a book cover, and what type of book cover do I need to have? Is it for Kindle or is it for, the sizes and stuff like that are different, or how does it work?
Generally, all the storefronts use about the same size. I don't remember what that is off the top of my head. Depending on what type of book you have, you just want to have, you can use the same cover you use at Amazon. It works the majority of the time. If you're making like a bundle or a box set, Apple does not allow 3D covers. So the things that look like a physical box set, they don't allow. And so you have to provide them with a 2D cover. So sometimes you might have a 3D cover for Amazon and other places, but for Apple, you do have to have a 2D cover. Really, that's the only rule that there is about the covers. People have to bring us a cover. We can attach a generic cover to it, but you want a professionally done cover. If you've got experience as a graphic designer, you can do it on your own. But for the majority of people, I recommend that they go ahead and pay a professional because it's such a huge part of the sales process. And it's such a great investment in your work. And you want to make sure that you work with someone who has experience in book covers because it's a little bit different than just normal graphic design. And you want to make sure it's genre appropriate. And so like if you look on any of the storefronts in your category, you want to make sure your book looks doesn't look noticeably different. You want it to fit in, but be like a little bit outstanding in some way to draw the eye, but you don't want it to be totally different. You don't want to put a picture of a starship on a romance book, for instance. So.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so then the author, I presume, has to have the book description, which is more or less the sales pitch of the book, right? And then the tricky part for me is the category selection, because more or less the people who have been on Amazon for a while, and we covered this on the podcast before, how to select the right relevant category, which is less competitive and has higher chances to get bigger, better rankings for the book and stuff like that. So what is the situation with categories on the other platforms? Do they have specifics, or, how does it work? Do we select just the categories on Draft2Digital and it goes to all the rest, or there is an option of, I don't know, are there any specifics for, let's say, iBook categories or Kobo categories or stuff like that?
We allow authors to choose 5 BISAC categories, which BISAC is kind of a U.S. standard for categories. it's much more used in like libraries, and the different retailers kind of vary a little bit from it. But those buy-side categories translate over very well to the different retailers. And so we have the author input 5 and we send 5 everywhere. Not all of the retailers use all 5. Sometimes they'll choose the top 2. But we believe in sending it to as many categories as we can. We also allow authors to enter keywords, and we send those as well. And some retailers use keywords to help them figure out how they want to classify a book. So it varies by the different retailers. I encourage people to get to know the different storefronts, like how they look, because it is a different, I find a lot of authors that have not been on the iBook store. And so it's a really good idea to check it out and kind of get a feel for this is where my book ended up. At Draft2Digital, as your books go live, we send you links to the retailers, and so you can go check it out and see how the book looks, see what category it ended up under. And so you want to check that out. And kind of like Amazon, you want to pick the right category. You want to get as specific as possible without being without choosing like a really, really small category. And sometimes that's hard to know. But it's something that we do, authors write in and ask us, and we since we're so familiar with the different storefronts, we can kind of help them with that.
Okay, I see. So basically, what confuses me a little bit, to be honest, is when you are on different platforms, it's like social media. When you are everywhere, you end up like, spreading yourself too thin. And at the end, you can't concentrate and focus on one effort. So you spend a lot of time promoting all these different social media channels, and you end up with average results. So that's the way I'm seeing this. When your book is on all these different platforms, I mean, how are you dealing with promoting the thing so it's like leveled out? Or I don't know. I mean, what do? You use, if you have your own author platform, then okay, you use your own assets. If no, is there a way? How are you approaching the promotion of the books? Does Draft2Digital help in any way in that respect?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll start from like the author perspective, like what as an author I encourage people to do. Because I've had a lot of chances to go to, I spoke at RWA, the NINC conference, a couple of different conferences about kind of this very issue and like how to do marketing and promotion. The first thing, like you make sure on your website that you have links to all the retailers and not just one. Basically have a link to every retailer where your book is at. Your readers will appreciate that as if they find you through Google or they find you through the web. They're going to want to be able to buy your book and find it easily on their platform of choice. The second thing I encourage people to do is don't try to do don't try to market to every retailer all at once. Watch your sales and see where am I doing the best, and concentrate on iBooks for a while, concentrate on Barnes & Noble for a while. You want to make sure in your social media that you mention them every once in a while, and you're not just sending people links just to Amazon. That is both for helping you find more readers, but it's also for the merchandisers from the different retailers do look. And so one thing I talked about in a bit is I do a lot of nominations for merchandising slots at the different retailers. And when I nominate a book, their merchandisers go out and look. And if your webpage just says Amazon all over it, they're going to probably turn down a merchandising opportunity. And so, I just take methodical steps. Don't try to do everything. Just pick one where you feel comfortable. If you're doing romance, iBooks really, really good for selling romance. And so I would encourage people to focus their efforts after Amazon on iBooks. If you're doing mysteries and detective mysteries, Barnes & Noble is a really great market for that. And so I'd focus on Barnes & Noble first. And then as you start, once the books start selling themselves and get into the also bots, you can then move on and try somewhere else.
Okay, I see.
You
It's
know,
interesting.
yeah, and then there's great like BookBub, for instance, is a great tool for going wide because they have such a broad user base. They prefer books that go to as many retailers as possible. So going wide gives you an extra chance of getting a BookBub slot, and BookBub sells a ton of books on all the other
Oh, yeah.
platforms as well. So.
Yeah, true. So basically, it's interesting. I mean, all this type of statistical data that can help you make decisions, is there anywhere available, like where authors can find this kind of information that may help them a lot in terms of making decisions?
There are reports that come out, but I wouldn't say that I know of a centralized depository for it. We recently made a blog, and we're starting to try to fill in more and more content on that and kind of share some insights into what we see, since we see aggregate data for about 19,000 authors at this point. We had very, very strong sales. We had 64 books last year on the New York Times bestseller list. We're close to that. I think we're at 58 right now for 2015. And so, we see a lot of data, and it's something we really want to share more of in the future, because we think that data helps authors quite a bit, making good business decisions, and helps them figure out how to improve their discoverability.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it definitely does, because I mean, this kind of, specific information that can help you decide, okay, you have a limited time, where do you dedicate that time and effort to, in case you're writing this type of books? It's very strategic and very important to know this if possible. So it's very valuable.
And I do, with my Twitter handle, I share a lot of industry related news. Things like the author earnings reports when they come out. Kobo releases a lot of good information about their international sales. And so I retweet a lot of that, and that's at Dan Wood. Okay. If anyone, basically nearly everything I'm tweeting is industry related news to help authors make better decisions with, what storefronts to focus on, what things they might want to do with their social media.
Okay, so I just have to ask this, because I already asked that to Mark from Smashwords. So I'm going to ask the same question to you. I mean, there are different options, like, different services which provide the same thing, like more or less the logic of the thing is the same, helping authors go wide and cover all the platforms, digital platforms for their book self-publishing. So when people are choosing among the ones that are available, what makes you different, and what are the advantages of choosing you over the other similar services?
There's a lot of different services out there. You have to kind of look at their business models. Ours is a no fee up front. We don't charge authors anything just to post their book. We don't make any money unless authors make money. And so, even our conversion service is free. If you use us to distribute, then we take the 15% of net, which works out to about 10% of your retail list price. So if you listed a book for $1 with us, the retailer will take about 30 cents of it. We would take about 10 cents, and the author would keep about 60 cents US. We pay monthly, which is a huge difference over us and Smashwords, and I can't think of any other competitors that pay monthly. Essentially, we feel that money is the authors, and we want to get it to them as quickly as possible. We've been famous for our customer support, having an actual phone number that people can call into, and it's 1-800 number, so people from all over the world call us, and so that's a lot of fun. We get to talk with a lot of our authors that we work with. Our speed of delivery, we've done a lot to make sure that we deliver to our retailers faster than anyone else. A lot of our people in the company came from technology backgrounds. Like, we've got a lot of developers, and so we try to automate as much as possible. We've made a very robust system for doing review processes, so we can check for quality and content issues and flag those and get them in front of a person to review very quickly and know, this is what we need to let the author know it needs to change, or this book can't be published to this retailer. So we pride ourselves on all those. Like Smashwords, we offer pre-orders at several of our different sales channels. So at Apple, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and Tolino, authors can take advantage of pre-orders. And we're just constantly trying to improve. We recently released our new release notifications, which is for authors that either don't have an email list already or just would like to be able to notify their readers at the different retailers that a new book is out. Readers can sign up at the back of your book to get a email notice, kind of like Amazon does with their subscribe to author feature, that lets them know that a new book is out and sends them a link to it at the retailer that they signed up from.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, great. I mean, since you have worked with so many authors, what do you think that authors, especially the newbie authors, struggle with the most?
That's a good question. There's still, with newbie authors, I would say understanding the need for editing. Like some of them still try to self-edit, and very, very, very few people can self-edit well. You just, as you're reading over things that you wrote, your brain knows what you meant and it fills it in and you don't notice it. Yeah. So I encourage everyone at least get copy editing done by someone else. If you don't have the money to pay, because editing is probably the most expensive part of the process. Find a group of other writers and exchange editing services with each other. But, I would encourage everyone to have someone else do their copy editing for them. There's developmental editing. And I think at a certain point in your career, as you're starting to make money, it's a good investment to talk to a developmental editor, and they can really help you develop your craft better. I see a lot of authors with their cover images where they have a specific idea in mind of exactly what they want it to be. And sometimes they just need to work more with a professional to get it to look right for their genre and not try to work too much into the, sometimes authors want to work like a lot of story details into a cover, and it just becomes busy.
True. True.
And then there's, I think newbie authors sometimes overwhelm themselves. Like they just try to do too much. And so social media, pick which one you like, and don't try to do Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest. Like don't try to do all of them. Pick the ones that you enjoy doing yourself. Do that, expand if you find you have time, but you're going to need to, over your career as an author, build a team of people that you work with and trust. You're a publisher, you're the CEO of your company. You can't do everything. And so hire people, talk to your friends, find out who they're using. I see a lot of the authors who are doing very, very well now getting virtual assistants or getting full-time assistants because you're going to need that at some point if you're really dedicated to being an author.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so to kind of wrap this up, actually, I guess what the main message is from both of us, because I completely agree with most of the things you told here, is that once you write your first draft of the book, make sure it is work done and ready in terms of quality to present it out there to everyone else. And also make sure that once it's ready, you choose the right channels to promote it, and you choose the right company who will help you with having it out there in all the digital platforms and all the countries that you can find readers at. Okay, so anything else, like last words to the newbie authors out there who are starting out with their first books and trying to figure out how things work?
I will say, I did get back around to it earlier. We do, as a company, most of my time goes into merchandising. And so what we do is we look for those books that are starting to sell on one platform, Like say we see a book is taking off on Apple, we talk to our other retailers and try to get it promoted to get it to start taking off at other places as well. There are all the different companies out there that are just charging upfront fees for posting your book. They're not really concerned with selling your book, but companies like us and Smashwords and a handful of other companies really are trying to promote books and try to sell more books. And so I encourage you, as you look for who's going to be your platform, talk to your friends and find out who is trying to help you sell books and who's, if you're paying them $100 to set up your book off the bat, their only incentive is to get you to sign up for their service the first time. And after that, it's very difficult to send out changes in a timely manner for most companies because they haven't automated everything. And so, we pride ourselves on, all of our price changes, descriptions, books generally go up within 24 hours or the next business day at a couple of retailers.
Okay, I see. Okay, well, thank you very much for the interview. I really appreciate you coming over, and it's really. I mean, I always tell that it's always worth trying new things and using the opportunities out there, because it's always nice to have this opportunity to have your book in front of more people and to gain one or two extra readers, because you never know how much they will like your book and how helpful they will be in promoting it later on. So even if the numbers of other platforms are smaller than Amazon, it's always worth a try, and you never know what those numbers may be later on in the future, because as you said, with the time they may grow and eventually become as important for you as Amazon is right now.
Yeah, you don't know. And there are a lot of authors now who make more of their income off of the other channels than they do off of Amazon. Liliana Hart has said multiple times that she makes more money off of Apple than Amazon. You don't know where your readers are. And it's just an exciting time because you have options and choices, because before digital publishing was such a thing, books really didn't cross over to other countries because it was very expensive. So very few books got into the hands of other people.
Okay, and we have the last question, I guess, unless he has other questions, which we are, he's welcome to put in. Art Jones is asking, he says, I'm reading Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic book, where she suggests writing for yourself versus writing to be read. What are your thoughts at that position?
I think you get the opportunity, you have options to do both. So it all depends on what your end goal. If your end goal is to make a living off your writing, then you probably want to think a lot about the writing to be read portion. But you have options to, you can write just for yourself and put that out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, exactly. When you are writing for yourself, it's really good for self-discovery, for the healing process that the writing can give you, for self-satisfaction, and loads of benefits that writing gives you. As for if you have, part of your goal to gain visibility, to gain readers, and to make money, then you might need to find that balance between the two, because maybe it will be too personal and too close to yourself and the things you know about your life when you're writing about yourself, which may not resonate with the reader. And that's where the problem may come in. So I guess it's just about balancing things out, because if you don't write for yourself and only for the audience, you may not really be authentic enough, I guess.
Yeah, and I would say
that's the other risk.
I think the way I would probably, now that I think about it, I'd probably answer it as write for your tribe, write for people like you and the people you like to hang around, people who have similar interests to you, because in that way you're writing for yourself and for others.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the comment is that she contends that when you write for yourself, you suffer less chaos. And she says her book, Eat, Pray, Love, was not written for her audience. Yes, I can understand that because it's a very personal book and it covers her most difficult period in life, most probably. And I guess it did well because although she wrote it for herself, it resonated with many people, and many people have gone to similar situations in their lives, and it kind of the ending brought the hope that these people needed. So it kind of, the story was not too alien. People had felt it at some, scale, more or less. So maybe not so extreme, but they knew what she was talking about. And we all need this hope and this, nice kind of, lightful thing at the end of the tunnel that we are looking for. So her example kind of, inspired people, encouraged them, and brought this hope that, things may get better and stuff like that. So I guess that's this emotional background that made the work for her, and I can see why.
And yeah, definitely some of the best literature came out of people writing for themselves, like the Diary of Anne Frank. There are numerous examples. It's just probably less likely to be commercially successful, but unless it does hit home with a ton of people, and that's hard to predict.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so, well, I guess we'll wrap it up. Thanks a lot. I'll just, finish the official recording for the podcast. Thanks a lot for coming in. I'm sure my listeners will get loads of value from it, but we can actually continue the conversation if, the audience is willing to jump in, ask questions, or...
Thanks for having me, and I'm excited. It's my first time on Blab, so it's a cool platform.
Oh yeah, it's cool. And you know what? I mean, I think that since it's new, it has loads of opportunities to gain visibility, and especially, I'm not talking about the individual level, but on brand level. So like personal brands and brands out there who are not doing it yet, the ones who start doing it first may really engage with their audiences and see who they are, and become more clear about what they really need.
Definitely.
And yes, it is addicting, Carla. I agree. Yeah. So Art Jones is saying, if you have something inside to share, something to say, and you believe in the content, why not write for yourself? It's like blogging your blog because you have something to offer, and those in the world that also believe that you believe find your content and become your tribe. Well, I agree with that. Yes. I mean, if you are just, being yourself and writing for yourself, eventually those who like what you've written and who are similar to you will gather around you. But unfortunately, what happens right now is that everything is so crowded and noisy that if you don't have any promotional efforts, most probably those people who are likely to gather and like you will not know that you exist. So I guess this is like the biggest problem many people are having, because I'm ending up seeing really amazing, very good writers with really nice books which have never been visible and are not known. And I don't know if they will be known with the time. And it's shame, actually, but that's how it works right now. Those who are kind of, better in marketing efforts, better in putting themselves out there and promoting stuff, and don't feel bad about self-promotion and interaction and being really active and hustling, those are the ones who get visibility. And then after that, only you have this chance of being liked or not liked. But people have to know about you and your book first. Yeah. So that's the biggest. And right now, even Amazon is so crowded that, even one category of Amazon is so crowded that it's very difficult to stand out. So
it's really neat though that people have this chance now, because prior to 8 years ago, you had to go through a traditional publisher, and they were very unlikely to take a chance on anything personal like that. Now you can post it for free and see if there's an audience. That's something that people throughout time have not always had. And so we get more diversity from that. We get a lot more voices talking to different niche markets. And that's very, very cool.
Yeah, exactly. It's very easy right now to get your message out there, and there are so many ways to do that. I mean, you can write and self-publish a book, you can open a blog, you can create a podcast, and you can do blabs, you can be on Periscope. I mean, there are loads of ways to actually express yourself and share your ideas and have different messages. You can even, if you have the time to dedicate for that, you can even repurpose the same content and make sure that the same message you have done once gets repurposed and is spread on all the platforms. So you have this chance, just like we spoke about books and being your books on all the digital platforms, you have a chance of having your message on all the digital social media channels. So you end up tapping into more people and getting more people to actually find about you. Discoverability is hard. Plus, those who write primarily for themselves are not so comfy to self-promote. Yeah, well, self-promotion, it's, I don't know. I personally feel super uncomfortable self-promoting myself, to be honest, but maybe it has something to do with my culture, because I was born and raised in the Soviet Union. And back there, self-promotion was something terribly impolite and awfully discouraged. So, if you are good, you were told, others would tell it, and you're not supposed to do it yourself. So for me, it's kind of, from there on, it's very hard to get out of this childhood upbringing, and it's not easy to get over it. So another question, let's see what it is. What do you think of model that Seth Godin and others have used, where they share bits of the content out long before the book is completed? It's a bit like crowdsourcing promotion. Works if the content is really good. Yeah, I'm really for it because I think that it's also a really nice way to validate your idea and to predict and forecast if you actually write and complete that book would do good. So you basically are kind of doing your research, you're building anticipation, and you're ensuring that the time you will be spending on making that book won't be wasted. So it's really, it's like now online entrepreneurs, what they are doing is when they have a business idea, they usually pre-sell it to make sure that it will sell. And only after it has been sold, they say that, the launch will be in 4 weeks or something like that. They sell the thing. Once they see that it can be sold, only then they put their time and effort creating whatever they are creating and selling, because otherwise, they will be spending all that time and effort, and at the end realize that people don't need it, and it will just, lay out there.
Yeah, I'm definitely a fan. In this day and age, I think you have to give people content for free to show to them, to let them test it, and to let them decide this is something useful and relevant to me. We're seeing that in probably the most popular strategy of indie authors is free first in series, like writing in series and giving the first book for free. We found it sells series that have a free first in series make 3 times as much revenue as series that don't. Now, for people that don't write in series, like if you're writing a nonfiction, I do think that's a great strategy to give out bits of the content, prove its value to people. And then once you prove value, people will spend money. Because people are just reluctant to spend money on things. And when you give them a sample and they like it, they're going to go for it. We're also seeing that with platforms like Wattpad, where new writers are just trying and building their craft and finding audiences and going on to get to either be successful indie authors or to get traditional contracts.
Yeah, true. Although, I mean, getting back to writing for yourself or writing to be read, I think series are, I mean, I don't believe a person can sit and write a series for himself. So it's more like a commercial project to me rather than a real kind of, writing for yourself and for your soul. For me, like those are completely, artificially stretched things that are, written specifically that way in terms of strategy to actually build things up and create a business out of it. So basically, for me, that's like something in between writing and like pure business, to be honest. Freemium promotes engagement, establishes credibility, and helps you build community. Yeah, I agree. Actually, giving out things for free, what it does is it makes people in a very effortless way realize whether you are their piece of cake or not, whether your writing is, what they prefer to read or not. And because you need to find out. I mean, for example, if you come across a name you have never heard and you have no idea what kind of writing it is, what style it is, and what quality it is, you will most probably either find someone who will tell you, who has tried, or just avoid that book, not to waste time on that. So basically, I guess, if you had an opportunity to at least read the chapter of that book for free, then it would be easier to make that decision.
I know there are a lot of authors that are concerned about giving away a book for free after they've spent, a good portion of their life slaving away at writing that first book. But the world is just changing. You can't look at books in a bubble. Applications like games on your smartphone, Netflix, all these things, they all give away stuff for free to get people in. And then after that, once they prove their value, then they start charging you. It's a different world. You can't expect for people to spend $5 on an unknown author.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because especially with today's time limitations and distractions, it's always so much easier just, to watch a TV series when you're too tired and stressed rather than dive into, let's say, a really thought-provoking deep book, for example. So that's why I have a feeling that even with books, those books who are kind of, very light, and those books which you can read in a metro or in an airplane or pretty much like, just like that, very, very lightly and just to kill time, those are the ones which do pretty well. But, if you look at the value part of things, like value as a writer by reading good quality stuff and learning the craft, or value as a reader by learning new things and or getting some experiences, that's not exactly what you're getting as a result. And what I'm talking about are more like, I don't know, like from the popular stuff, it's something similar to Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey, and stuff like that, which, like, in terms of literary value, it's very doubtful.
But, Kobo released some numbers on percentage of books read, because Amazon does not share a lot. But The Goldfinch, which was a huge book, it won a lot of literary awards last year.
Oh, yeah.
One of the least completed books. People were buying it because everyone was told that everyone was reading it. So very few people finished it.
But it was so well written, actually.
The most read books were those that were popular, turn pagers or page turners. That's the right word. Stuff like Dan Brown, it wasn't this year, but just that idea of it's not always the literary classics that get read to completion. Sometimes it's kind of the guilty pleasures.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I think it also comes from the educational system, because it's not like children are obliged to read classics like before. So it's not something they're used to and they're familiar with. So, what they're reading is what they hear is popular and they try that out. So no one is actually kind of, from the new generation, not many are sitting and reading Pride and Prejudice, for example, or Russian classics, which is pretty heavy to read, actually.
They really are.
It's
The Brothers Karamazov was the book I had the hardest time getting through, and I loved it, but it was depressing. I think for a long time, the New York Times and whatever Barnes & Noble put on their front shelves really set a tone for this is what people are reading. And, a lot of readers just bought things from those lists. Nowadays, people are getting a book recommendation from their friends. Like, social media has changed that, and it's kind of spreading out, like how, I don't think we have as big of blockbusters anymore, but we have more. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, which gives opportunity actually for self-published authors to make full-time income, which we didn't have before. I mean, I have interviewed many authors who are making full-time author money purely from their book sales. And even, I understand it when it happens with nonfiction authors who have a back-end, higher price products at the end and services at the end. So it's not really like they made the money from the book itself. But there are many fiction authors who are actually writing series and making money just purely by selling those books. So they just set up a sales channel and sales funnel, and by promoting and advertising that stuff, they end up making really good money.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So what do we do? Do we wrap it up, or you have anything else to say?
I think I'm good. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah. No one jumped into the open seat. Usually when they do that, it's more fun. But today we didn't have many people around. So, okay. So we have it recorded. And if anyone came in late, you can always rewatch it. And we'll have the recorded episode, the audio version, for the Right to Be Read podcast's next episode, most probably. So you'll have that version as well for the time you won't be in front of the computers and will use your earbuds and commute to work, or I don't know, be jogging or whatever it is. So you don't really have to watch our faces. You can just listen to what we spoke. Okay, well, that was it. Thanks a lot. So I'll be stopping the recording.